Hey guys, welcome back to the channel, and today we're going to be looking into the unit roster of Hector. His roster focuses on tough, heavy, and expensive well-armed units which can be used in crushing frontal attacks. This video will serve as a guide for determining what units to bring to the battlefield and how to use them. First up, we have the Militia Warband. They are a lightweight spear and shield infantry with an upkeep cost of only 90 food. These are the lowest tier units and can be considered the cannon fodder of the roster. However, they have decent armor and are shielded with a 35% missile block chance, decent morale, high speed, low melee attack of 16 but good melee defense of 34, fairly low damage, but they have bonus damage against large units. These guys should be used like any other cannon fodder units and send them into the frontline engagement before the main frontline clashes, or use them to chase down missile infantry. Trojan Warriors. They are a lightweight two-handed club infantry with an upkeep cost of only 80 food. They have fairly low armor, decent morale, high speed, melee attack of 22, and a low melee defense of 16. Fairly low damage as well. Charge bonus is 24, so they can be utilized for psychocharging the enemy flanks or bolstering your frontline engagement. Next are the Swordsmen. They are a lightweight sword and shield infantry with an upkeep cost of 110 food. They have decent armor and are shielded with a good missile block chance of 55%. Decent morale and speed. Melee attack is good and melee defense is pretty high for the cost. And they also have 107 damage. These are a very cost-effective frontline unit for the early game. You should utilize these guys as your front lines until you get access to the renowned swordsman. Spear Fighters. These guys are a medium-weight, two-handed spear infantry with an upkeep cost of 185 food. They have decent armor and morale, high speed, good melee combat stats, but a low damage of 60 with bonus damage against large units. They do have a good charge bonus of 28, so they should be utilized for psychocharging the enemy flanks or bolstering your frontline engagement. Now we have the renowned swordsman. These guys are heavyweight sword and shield infantry with an upkeep cost of 125 food and 20 bronze. They have good armor values and high morale, meaning they have good staying power, which is what you want for a frontline unit. 32 melee attack, 41 melee defense, and a large damage of 125. These guys are a very good mid/late game frontline unit. They can be quite cost effective for their decent staying power stats. The Guards of Troy. These guys are a heavyweight spear and shield infantry with an upkeep cost of 135 food and 30 bronze. They have high armor with a huge missile block chance of 75%, high morale, decent speed, fairly average melee attack but high melee defense, with 110 damage with bonus damage against large units, swordsmen, and axemen. They also have immunity to psychology and can switch to two-handed spears. These guys should be mixed in with your renowned swordsmen. Make sure to have them on the flanks of the frontline formation. Next up, we have the Heavy Shock Spears. These are a heavyweight two-handed spear infantry. They have good morale and armor, decent speed, good melee attack of 38, melee defense of 48 with a damage of 78 with bonus damage against large units, swordsmen, and axemen. They also have a good charge bonus of 30 and increased effects when flanking an enemy unit. These guys should be used for flanking the enemy front line or any other side engagement. Now we have the Trojan Defenders. These guys are a heavyweight club and shield infantry with an upkeep cost of 170 food and 45 bronze. They have high armor and fairly low missile block chance of 45%, high morale, low speed, melee attack is average at 32, but a high melee defense of 58, high damage of 167. They also have the passive ability Encourage, which gives nearby ally units a morale bonus. These guys are one of Hector's more elite frontline units. They should be placed at the center point of your frontline formation. The Heavy Trojan Spearmen. These guys are a heavyweight spear and shield infantry with an upkeep cost of 150 food and 40 bronze. They have high armor with a huge missile block chance of 75%, high morale, low speed, melee attack is slightly higher than the Trojan Defenders at the cost of melee defense of 52. Their damage is lower at a value of 110, but they have bonus damage against large units, swordsmen, and axemen. These are another elite unit of Hector. Due to their slightly lower defense, we want to place these guys on the flanks of the frontline formation or clash them with any swordsman or axeman infantry to take advantage of their bonus damage. Next up, we have the Champions of Troy. These guys are a heavyweight spear and shield infantry with an upkeep cost of 170 food and 55 bronze, and they are one of the tankiest units in the game. They have extremely high armor, a huge missile block chance of 85%, high morale, low speed, high melee combat stats across the board with bonus damage against large units, swordsmen, and axemen. They also have access to armor-piercing missiles, can shoot while moving, are immune to psychology, and encourage nearby units. These guys are some of the best frontline units in the game, and if you have access to some of these in your army, they should be placed at the center of your frontline formation. They will definitely hold down the center very well. Last of the melee infantry are Hector's Chosen. These guys are medium weight sword and shield infantry. They have high armor and a huge missile block chance of 85%. They are very fast, have great melee combat stats across the board with high damage of 160 and a good charge bonus of 26. They encourage nearby units, have bonuses when flanking, and are immune to being flanked. These guys have quite the kit. They can be used as a frontline unit, but I suggest using them as a flanking unit. They are very fast with extremely high combat stats. If you manage to get these guys into the flanks of the enemy front line, they will absolutely devastate anything they clash with. Plus, they are immune to being flanked, so if they are collapsed on, they won't suffer any melee combat stat reductions. These are one of the best melee infantry units in the game and have been known to be quite difficult to take down. Now we are moving on to the range portion of Hector's roster. Hector's ranged units are quite lacking, but he makes up for it by having a lot of heavily armored and shielded units. Just like Paris, Hector has the light skirmishers. These are lightweight javelin infantry with an upkeep cost of only 80 food, low armor, decent morale, fairly high speed, terrible combat stats. They have 15 ammunition, 100 range, and 20 missile damage with good armor piercing value. These guys can be quite cost effective considering they are the cheapest missile infantry and have armor piercing. Use these guys to quickly move to the enemy flanks and fire at them. These are very good missile units if used properly. Now we have the Trojan Slingers. These are lightweight slinger infantry with an upkeep cost of 160 food. They have extremely low armor, fairly decent morale, average speed, low melee combat stats, 28 ammunition, 160 range, and 25 missile damage. The objective of Hector's missile units are to just eliminate the enemy missile units. Hector's frontline does not need much support and can tank a lot of missile fire if necessary. Here are the archers. They are lightweight bow infantry with an upkeep cost of 125 food, low armor, decent morale, fairly high speed, 28 ammunition, 150 range, 27 missile damage. Use these guys to fire into the enemy missile units. Priority is removing the enemy missile fire or firing at enemies that are routing. Lastly, we have the renowned archers. They are medium bow infantry with an upkeep cost of 130 food and 20 bronze, good armor and morale, decent speed, 30 ammunition, 160 range, 29 missile damage. In my opinion, I think you shouldn't utilize these guys at all in your army. Hector's frontline is quite beefy and shouldn't need much support from missile units. These guys are unnecessary, and you should only use the lower tier missile infantry for taking out the enemy missile units. Now we're moving on to the chariots of Hector's roster. They are quite basic. First, we have the Anatolian Chariots. These guys are a medium weight chariot unit with an upkeep cost of 200 food and 40 bronze. They have decent armor and morale, very high speed, average melee combat stats with bonus damage against large units. They have a huge charge bonus of 50. Like any chariot unit, they should be used for cyclocharging and not prolonged combat. The Heavy Trojan Chariots. They are a heavyweight two-handed spear chariot with an upkeep cost of 200 food and 40 bronze. They have high armor and morale, high speed, decent melee combat stats with bonus versus large. They have a huge charge bonus of 60. You should use these guys for cyclocharging and not leave them in prolonged combat. Archer Chariots. These are a lightweight bow chariot unit with an upkeep cost of 180 food. They have fairly low armor and high morale, very high speed of 88, low melee combat stats, 50 ammunition, 120 range, and 54 missile damage. These guys should be kept on skirmishing mode and move them around the flanks of the enemy front lines. You can also use these guys to disrupt the enemy missile units. Lastly, we have the Mythical Units. There are only two. First being the Corybantes. These guys are medium weight spear and shield infantry. They have decent armor with a missile block chance of 65%, high morale, good speed, 48 melee attack, 66 melee defense, and 125 damage with bonus damage against large units, swordsmen, and axemen. They also have a decent charge bonus. They are immune to psychology, are unbreakable, have improved flanking defense, and they have an ability called Shield Wall Formation, which increases missile block chance and melee defense for 45 seconds for all allies within 20 meters. These guys can be used to bolster your center point of your frontline formation. The shield wall formation ability is also a nice touch. Lastly, we have the Minotaur. This is a single entity, decent armor, extremely high morale, high speed, high melee attack of 68, average melee defense of 30, extremely high damage of 1180, with good armor piercing value. He also has a high charge bonus of 45, causes fear, has the ability called Bull Rush, which I'm sure speaks for itself, and Savage Roar, which reduces enemy morale by 30. This guy should be mixed in with your frontline engagement. If you send him after a unit by himself, he will take quite a bit of damage due to his single unit size. That about wraps it up for Hector's unit roster, and now we'll look into the mid-game army composition. This is in no way the best army composition, but it is well-rounded and should be able to outperform many armies you encounter. We have 5 renowned swordsmen, 3 guards of Troy, 3 spear fighters, 3 heavy shock spears, 2 light skirmishers, and 3 Trojan slingers. Alright, so now we're going to go into the unit formation we're going to want to use. So we're going to use our 5 renowned swordsmen in the center, with 2 guards of Troy on the flanks, and the other guard of Troy in the reserve. They will be used to bolster anywhere the front line is weakening. We have 2 spear fighters here in reserve as well. These guys will be used to bolster the front line, or if there is an opening, they can be brought around the flanks and then flank the enemy front line. They can also be used to cycle charge their backs. We have 3 Trojan slingers here. These guys are in position to take out enemy missile infantry. And then we have 2 light skirmishers here hidden in the woods on the side. These guys will be brought around to flank the enemy units and fire at their backs. And then we have this whole flanking group here, 1 spear fighter and 3 heavy shock spears. These guys will be used to come around and flank the enemy front line as well. Or they can be used to intercept anyone coming to flank your units. And then we have Hector here in the middle. Alright guys, hope you enjoyed the video and found it informative for your Hector campaign. Make sure to check out my other guides on the other faction units, which can be found in the link here. If you have a request on which hero guide you want next, leave a comment below. Also, make sure you drop a like and subscribe for more.